race. And the police comes and they say, well, we can't do anything. It's
Of course, all opinions are my own, not my employer's.
Period. Hello. Welcome to Pop and Politics. I'm KJ, and thank you so much for joining us. We have a stunning show for you tonight. You are not going to want to miss this. So again, we are back every Wednesday with the latest in news and entertainment. Again, let me go ahead and introduce you to my co-hosts. We have Yana, we have T, we have Xandria, Shelly E, and we have a special guest co-host tonight. We have Tamara Brown. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments throughout the show. And don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Check out our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com for up-to-date information. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right, ladies, so let's set it off. So we are starting off tonight with Tamara Brown. She is here with us tonight, as you can see in the studio. She is the former acting chief of Baltimore City's Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office, also MWBE. Tamara started at MWBE in May of 2018. Her primary responsibilities include managing certifications, setting MWBE spend goals for projects, and monitoring the progression of projects achieving their set MWBE spend goals. She is an Army U.S. intelligence veteran, a diverse background in program and risk management on a large scale federal information technology systems. She is a graduate of the University of the District of Columbia, David A. Clark School of Law, where she was recipient of the Dean's Cup and the Edgar Kahn Award for Advocacy and Community Service. She served for several years at local law firm where she handled a wide array of legal matters. So she is a big deal. She was
Right.
She came to the agency with a wealth of knowledge. And while there, she also uncovered a plethora of challenges minority businesses face along with waste and fraud. So Tamara, you, as I mentioned, are clearly qualified and more than capable. I saw several news articles where you were praised for a job well done. So let's start this off with, why were you let go?
I really don't know.
Okay.
I received the final determination letter that my services were just no longer needed with the city.
So in layman's terms, what were your services? What I know we had.
So I was not the acting. I was the actual chief of the Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office. And that office, if you're familiar with the Baltimore City Code, it sets minority participation goals on contracts, and that's based on prior discrimination. It's really just subcontracting. So we have a disparity study every 5 years where we have to show that there's in fact a disparity. And based on that disparity study, there are numbers established and metrics established to ensure that minority and women-owned businesses can participate on city contracting. It's just for subcontracting though. So based on prior disparity studies, the office it's in legislation. City Council approved that legislation, and so it's been in the office for about since the early 90s, the last iteration of it. So if you look at the Baltimore City Code, Article 5, Subtitle 28, it outlines the office. So that's one of the only offices within the law department, that is the only office within the law department that actually was in legislation where it was required via legislation, and everything that we did, all the processes are within the city code, which
So for Baltimore City.
for Baltimore City.
Can I just understand it correctly? So basically, the city contracts certain businesses and to do services for the city, correct? And so in order to be awarded the funds, they have to qualify based on these criteria that they have to be minority and women-owned businesses. Is that right?
Right. So our office would certify businesses, and at the time, I think we had about 12 to 1,300 certified minority and women-owned businesses that are within a certain market area, that are within a certain size standard, and we go through an investigation to ensure that it is 51% majority owned by a minority or a woman, or both. And so when there's a contract that's let for either public service or even, internal with, like a city building may need renovating. So all of the city contracts over $50,000, we would set goals on a contract by contract basis. So we would get almost a summary of the contract. We'd look at the availability of the minority businesses that are certified, and we would it's like a calculation that was generated, metrics where it would say, maybe 10% minority participation and 2% women-owned. So the overall city goal, aspirational goal, is 27% minority participation on all contracts and 10% women. So we would set those goals, but we would do it on a contract by contract basis. Sometimes there wasn't an availability, so it wasn't that high. It would be maybe 10% minority business and 2%.
So there has to be a percentage for that minority-owned business.
Right. So a contractor bidding could either be a minority business, it's very rare, as a prime, and they would have a contract, and a form would come to our office to say, we're going to use this minority business for 5% of the goal and the other business for the other 5% to meet the goal. So it's part of a contract award evaluation where a prime contractor would have to use a minority or a woman-owned business in order to get the contract. If you were not compliant, then typically you weren't found as a responsive bidder, and you would be thrown out if there were goals on the contract.
So for our listeners, for Baltimoreans, what is not happening that should be happening so that Baltimoreans are aware of, have a little bit better idea of what's going on or not going on?
So I encourage all Baltimoreans to look at the Baltimore City Code. I mean, that's a start. And if you looked at what's going on, if you look at other jurisdictions and cities, you can go online and see what the utilization is. Like, in FY19, the city of Cincinnati used, and this is a hypothetical, they used minority businesses for whatever $1 million, and or 14%, they were close to their goal. Baltimore City can't provide you those metrics right now. It really is
can't or won't.
Well, they can't because they won't. There's a compliance system that we were working on putting in place. The contract was actually awarded sometime in 2017. For whatever reason, it sat in procurement. So when I took over the office in December of 2018 and early 2019, I started working to get the contract a final award because it never went to the board of estimates. There were some protests from another vendor. So to make a long story short, before my exit from the city, I was working on implementing that system. So, the citizens can see, okay, minority businesses are being utilized, and this is, they're complying with their own laws. The city is not complying with their own laws. If you look at the code, and I see you have a copy with you, if you went down a checklist of things, there's a checklist of things that the city is not doing, and it's unfortunate because it has impacted our minority businesses.
So they're not awarding the funds to the businesses that qualify under this.
So what you'll see at the Board of Estimates on Wednesday is you'll see the award of contracts, and sometimes you'll see the Sons of Baltimore say, oh, why aren't you using minority businesses? Oh, why aren't you meeting the goal? Like there's this big to do about nothing. And that's just the award of the contract. Like I can just tell you, oh, I'm going to use your business, and you sign a commitment form, and I'm going to use your business, and I'm compliant. So it's awarded. The problem is the city is not conducting any compliance after that. So it's awarded, and it's like, hey, you got the contract, you're going to use these businesses, and these businesses prepare for that. Sometimes they didn't even know that the contract was awarded. So sometimes I'd sit in my office and send an email after the Board of Estimates to say, hey, your business was named as a subcontractor. And because we don't have the technology to automatically do that, you have to sit and send a manual email to say, hey, you're on this contract. Make sure the prime contractor contacts you, because these small businesses operate based on this. They sign this form to say, oh, what, $800,000, I could be getting $800,000 this year on this contract. And they prepare for that. And, there's been businesses that haven't been utilized at all.
So you're saying that they're telling the businesses, yes, we awarded you the contract, but they're not cutting the check.
So the prime contractor will be awarded the contract, and and a lot of times I found it was out of state contracts, contractors that come in and they win the contracts because the city has to be able to award to anyone. You can't just award to local businesses, but they're utilizing our local businesses to win those contracts.
So the
but they're not
prime-
using
And then
Right.
they don't use them after it's
So
awarded.
the prime contractor gets the money, but then it's not
It's directly from the
distributed.
city.
It's
Right.
not
Absolutely.
distributed to the subcontractor.
So-
Absolutely.
So if a prime contractor, or I guess a general contractor, says they're going to use for a subcontractor business X, minority business X, how is it that that minority business does not know that that prime contractor has chosen or selected to use that business? How
They
is
know
that?
that they've selected them but there could be 10 bidders. They don't know that that particular prime was awarded the contract. So at the time of award, there really is no notification. There's compliance systems that would automatically do that, and they would get an email. But for our office at the time, and I had 3 other employees for a long period of time, one secretary, 1 investigator, myself, and 1 compliance officer. Managing, we got up to 800 applications a year. And in order to review an application, you have to go through their taxes. You have to sometimes do an interview to ensure that the woman is in charge and running the business. You have to do site visits to make sure they're actually operating in the market area with 1 investigator. And then on top of that, you're doing contract compliance. You're setting goals, number 1, with the agency send you the work, and then you set the goals. Then it's awarded. It's a lot of work for 4 people to do, as you can imagine. So,
And what about once these people bid? They bid on the contract and they say this is how much I'm going to pay. Then there's also a situation where they're going back and requesting more money than what they initially bid. Can you talk about that?
well, yeah, sometimes you'll see with Baltimore City contracts where it's the lowest bidder. There's no other determination typically. So you can be a lowest bidder, and a lot of the incumbents in the city are aware of how to maneuver the situation. Larger companies, of course, can bid lower, and they win the contracts, and then there's change orders thereafter, and the contract gradually increases. And so those change orders have to be approved by the agencies. But what I found, like with DPW and some of the DGS, Department of General Services, a lot of the people making the decisions are in bed with those companies, those prime companies. They prefer to use them. There's just a relationship. A lot of them create relationships because when they leave the city, they want to go work for those companies. So, there's no favoritism going on, and it tends to not be for the small local business.
Right.
All right. So you leading up to you being laid off, right? Did you resign or were you laid off?
So typically, they'll give you an option. You can resign, or you can, or we will fire you. And I was one of the people that I did not have that option. I was terminated.
Leading up to that, what was the tension? Okay, say you found that they weren't giving the subcontractors the funds, or how did that process lead to you being?
I'm not really sure. I know during the June, if you look online on, they have all the hearings, and if you look at the budget hearing for June of 2020, they're saying, oh, you're doing such a great job. You're really stepping up, and you're doing all the things that no one's ever done before, and we commend you for that. And by September, so I don't know. I mean, what led up to it? I think there just some overall tension with starting to penalize contractors for non-compliance. It just wasn't done.
And so where does the money go? So you're saying the money is not the subcontractors are not notified. Where does that money go then?
So a prime will, let's say I'm using your company, and I said I was going to use you for 10% of $1 million contract. That's a lot of money. And I don't use you for that 10%. Me as the prime, I'm performing the work. I'm being paid by the city. You're just not going to get paid because perhaps I never called you to do that work. And there were instances where I worked very closely with the IG and reported things like that, where I found a woman-owned business didn't sign the documentation that was submitted for the contract award in the first place. They didn't recall it. There was an IG report written about it. That's fraud. You've essentially won a contract based on fraud. No one signed. No one can prove who signed that document to say we're going to participate with you. They never called this individual, the business owner, so they didn't get any work. When I called them to do compliance, which we weren't doing, you have to pick up the phone, have the call to say, were you paid? Can I get proof that you were paid? It was a very manual process, and if you can imagine, for every contract over $50,000. To do that manually, it's almost impossible.
Is it a one-off though, or is this something that's perpetual? Is it
It's
something?
very perpetual. And if you look across the nation, like I was looking at the city of Philadelphia and working with their Office of Inspector General, learning their best practices, what they were doing, they were penalizing a lot. And if you look, the reports are public. And so I was trying to learn from them. A lot of pass-through companies, that's pretty typical of these programs where they'll establish companies that aren't really minority owned, and it's run by other company or by a non-minority business. And it's just called, that's what they call a pass-through in that industry. So they've been heavily penalized for that, or for non-compliance, not utilizing the businesses.
So this compliance piece, I know it's really important. So we have here in Baltimore City, we have Miss Cumming, Isabel Cumming, the inspector, IG. So, and of course some of the city politicians are trying to get her position, I guess, more scrutinized, if that's a word for it. But if the companies are not, if there's no compliance from the beginning, who's following up to find out if the work is actually done? Or is that done on a regular basis?
So what should actually happen is there should be more than one investigator in an office like that. And they should do site visits regularly. So if there's a contract that's been awarded, we're supposed to go and do site visits to go and say, hey, you work on this contract. Who do you work with? Taking names, seeing who's working that day. Then there's labor records that are submitted with the wage, with civil rights and wage enforcement. And they're also a piece that they're doing that paper. They receive paper of all the wages every week on every contract. You should be able to cross-reference the names of who was on the site. Sometimes you'll see a prime vendor using the same, or you may not even see a minority business on site, but sometimes they'll share resources and you're not supposed to do that. The problem is that the offices that do the compliance that could be collecting money and penalizing and making revenue, they're understaffed. And you'll see that the administration, if you look at the budget, is heavily staffed in areas that don't really do any work. And then the offices that do the actual hardcore work like that are understaffed. And
why is that though?
Yeah.
Why are they
I wish I knew.
A question. So when someone is not when these companies are not complying, who is? Oh my gosh!
I just saw that. I just saw that.
And just bled. Who is getting hurt by it? Like what businesses or what individuals are being affected by these prime contractors not complying?
Again, so prime contractors can come from anywhere across the country. They don't have to be local. They could bid and win a contract. And that's pretty typical, particularly with the underground work that's going on, with the consent decree, with the EPA. A lot of underground work is getting done by a lot of out-of-state contractors. They're utilizing our local businesses because you have to be a local minority business to get certified. So who is it harming? It's harming you and I. It's harming our crime statistics when people don't have jobs and opportunities. When you look at a minority business, who's going to hire minorities is typically minority businesses. And when you look at the population, it's majority Black in the city, and it's harming our businesses. So our local economy ends up suffering because those out-of-state companies don't have offices here. They don't have children in our schools. They don't have they're not paying taxes here. Our business
Spends
Yeah.
more money for them to come here and even live and stay for the length of the contract.
And one thing I want to ask you is about the taxes. So we have these contractors that are basically, they're putting in a bid and then they're going in and they're asking for additional money. How does that affect the taxpayers? And do you have an idea of the number of how much money has been, I'm not sure of the proper term, but
Wasted or okay.
Change orders.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I know that there's been like recent things like the parking lot where, I don't know, the parking contract where it was like, I don't know, $1 or something ridiculous that we knew we weren't going to pay. And, there's been a number of several contracts that were underbid that we end up still paying for. I can't tell you how many contracts have change orders. Those are the type of things that you hope to see are public. I mean, we see a lot of people running for office and they talk about transparency, but where can you log in to see that? I mean, where can you log in to see who the highest paid contractor is? Where's their home base? Do you know? I mean, I pay taxes here. I know, but do you know? You don't. You can't see that. It's not a local business.
So the minority business, just I want to make sure I'm want to be balanced here. Since the prime contractors are often out of state, are there enough businesses in Baltimore City, I guess, or a variety of minority businesses that are able to fulfill the contracts? Because I mean, again, we have a job crisis here, or the crime, things like that. So, are there actual businesses, minority businesses, that are available to fill those contracts?
Well, if the program has been in place for about 40 years and it has worked, it's been defunct. I mean, what do you think? We
Mhm.
don't have. So the
Mhm.
whole intention of that program is to grow businesses. You're supposed to be able to grow
Mhm.
like the federal 8A program. You graduate out because you're so large. I can't tell you right now, and I ran the office for 2 years, how many businesses graduated out. I know I graduated businesses that were too large in the first place, that were still hanging around and, you know, getting
Right.
working with subcontractors. But as far as like our businesses growing organically, I don't know. There probably are not a lot of businesses in the city, and that's the problem, because Baltimore City Hall is like it's a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar business, and we should have businesses that are growing with legislation like that in place. Someone took the time. We paid for someone to sit there and legislate that. Someone typed it up. Someone added it to the code. They refresh it. We pay for a disparity study every 5 years. That's about $800,000 to $1 million. And what happens? We're spending money to staff an office that isn't functioning, and we find money. The compliance software is $69,000 a year for a license. I can guarantee you the city has wasted more than $69,000 on other things that are not as impactful to our local businesses. So what you'll start to see is our local businesses are dying. We don't have, you know, our local businesses are going to go to our restaurants. They're going to go, you know, their kids go to our school. They're going to occupy our office spaces that are vacant. It's a ghost town downtown. So we can't, why can't we grow? This is my, if an MBE program is going to work anywhere, it needs to work in Baltimore City.
So when you reported to, who were you reporting to, and who was supposed to figure this out, like how to fix the problem?
So, so as you will see in the code, I was supposed to report to the city solicitor directly because I did work within the law department.
Who was that?
So I was hired by Andre Davis at the time, who was the city solicitor. He did have me reporting directly to Dana Moore, who was the deputy city solicitor. And at the time of my termination, Dana Moore was the acting city solicitor. So it was the onus of the law department to ensure that their, you know, agencies were in compliance and contractors were in compliance. And so I worked a lot with Isabel Cummings and submitted a lot of things because of this shortage of staff. Having one investigator, she did help to investigate a few claims that I had and issues that I had with some non-compliance or the fraud and different things going on in contracts. But what we started to uncover, because we saw so many contracts, was just a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of contract fraud, a lot of a lot of favoritism.
Favoritism by who?
By city employees. I mean, we talk about elected officials, but a lot of the things happen at the working level, and that's what people don't understand. I mean, they talk about the city officials being so corrupt, but the corruption can't happen. It doesn't happen at the Board of Estimates. It happens before it gets to the Board of Estimates. That actual contract award, you know, the gerrymandering that goes on within that whole process. It happens before it gets to the board. I mean, I would get so frustrated when I see people like, oh, they're doing this at the board. It already happened at the agency level. And that's what people need to understand, is that I anticipated and expected this new administration to clean house, and they didn't. And so the fact that a lot of the agency heads are still there, the fact that a lot of the people are still in positions and they've, you know, moved people, the previous administration, a lot of people are left over from that. So what we saw at the Board of Estimates was a lot of banter between the previous mayor, Jack Young, and Brandon Scott, which was just that, because he maintained a lot of people that were in his administration that are still making a lot of the decisions.
Why did you think that it would change within your administration?
I was hoping it would. You know, maybe a little naive.
Hope and change.
Just hoping.
Was
Was
there
told
promises
it would.
made? Did they make
Hope and
promises?
Well,
change.
of course. You know,
Yeah.
the current mayor
Right.
did make some assertions that things would change and things would be better. And
Let me ask you a more, I guess, a more personal question. So some people watching you here now may say, they might recognize your face, right? And they may say, well, you're angry or you're upset. So explain to our listeners why that may not be the case.
Or
well,
maybe the case.
Or
I mean, so to start, I guess I didn't get to introduce the reason I applied. Well, I even got a job with the city. It was not like some people have this dream. They want to go work for the the city, they want to 9 to 5. They just want to go sit down, go home at 5 o'clock. When I went to law school later in life, after my son was getting ready to graduate from high school, and it was during the Freddie Gray uprising.
Mhm.
I was in the midst of my last year of law school. And why I won that award is because I was instrumental in, getting our doing some legal assistance, getting the law school involved. And I went to law school in DC, but we were coming up here and doing a lot of work. And that really, changed me. I always knew I was an advocate, but that really changed me. So I applied for a job in the police department in compliance and thought, oh, I'm going to go into the police department and fix everything, somehow. But I never dreamed of working for the city. I mean, I'm a veteran, I'm going through law school. It's something that happened. They called me a year later about this job. So I'm like, okay, I got to take the bar exam. I'm going to go in this job and just leave 9 to 5, easy. But as I got in there, I was like, oh my gosh. And again, I'm coming from a military intelligence background where there's just things you don't do. You're watching. It just was such an odd environment for me to come into. And my eyes started opening. But what I didn't know is I was hired to replace the chief that was in, because I came in as a program analyst in May of 2018, and I was escalated into this position in December of 2018. And that wasn't my plan. So no, I wasn't someone that was like, oh, I'm going to be a city worker and retire from the city. That was never my plan.
Right.
So angry about, there's a lot of bullying and there's clique environment. To be in an environment like that, I mean, really the only reason I stayed as long as I did was because I would get an email from a minority business that would say, oh, I finally have hope. Someone's there that actually cares, is actually doing something. Just to see that, I said, I wasn't there for me. I was there for other people. Okay. So I guess I've said before, and I've done an interview before where I said I am upset because I do live in the city. I do pay a lot of taxes in the city for my properties. I pay tickets, I pay all that stuff. So you're upset because I see what's happening with the money. And I see that the city is paying these hefty salaries for people that don't want to do the work. It's a culture of awarding lack of performance. It's
like keeping the status quo.
Yeah.
It's very disturbing when I see that, the laziness.
When you started identifying and discovering all this, who did you tell, who did you share with, and how did they react?
Well, I went through the chain of command. So I would tell the solicitor. Solicitor Davis was always like, oh, go talk to Isabel. He was very go talk to Isabel. Once he left, things did change a little bit. And people do things and say things for job security, which amazed me because I look at it, public service is public service. And when you look at the org chart for the city, on the top is the people. So even, I would get a lot of, oh, well, that's the boss. I'm like, no, the people are really the boss. To be quite honest, the people are the boss, but that's not the approach of a lot of people. And so it was difficult for me to maneuver. So I would always go through the chain of command, but Isabel Cummings I did have a close relationship with her. And I can say that I, would CC her, blind copy her on a lot of things that were going on and keep her in the loop of everything because, I felt that she was a trusted partner in what I was doing.
Well, so you reveal this information to the chain of command, down to the chain of command. Where did it stop? Did it stop at certain places?
Isabel, like I said, did some investigations. Sometimes I was told that I didn't want to appear. I was appearing like I was an enemy of the agencies. But if you look in the code, you're supposed to be able to bring the agencies to the Board of Estimates to say, after meetings, you're non-compliant, you're traditionally
supposed to do a report too,
right? An annual report, right?
Because you're supposed to check the agencies, right?
But so when people are looking for job security, and my the acting city solicitor at the time, who was now running civil rights and wage, was worried about her job, Dana Moore.
So there's a clash. It's a culture clash, if you will.
Absolutely a culture clash. And so people that work tend to leave. I mean, the few people, the handful, maybe 2 or 3 people that I knew were in it, like me. Another veteran, as a matter of fact, that I worked very closely with, that was embedded in one of the agencies that fed me a lot of the information. She couldn't take it anymore, and she had to leave. She was very disturbed by what she saw, and her integrity just said, I just can't be here. So you'll see an exodus of people that have some integrity, and And what you'll see is the remaining people. I'm always will tell people you have to be concerned about people that are carrying over from administration to administration. It's very concerning. So they want a culture of laziness. I mean, I work 7 days a week, easily. It's not an exaggeration. Maybe, especially during COVID, 15 hours a day, religiously. Didn't complain about it. That's just something I had to do because we were so short-staffed. And that's the way I looked at it. But they don't want that. They don't want someone that works like that. They want someone that's going to go home at 5 and not ask questions, not look into things, and just,
Were there
tunnel
other
vision.
people that also saw the same things you saw, and did they complain, and what happened with them?
Well, right, like the partner that I think I had within the agency, she left. She got frustrated. She just felt like eventually they were going to pinhole her and put something on her, and she's like, well, my reputation is just too, my integrity is too important for me. I'm going to leave.
What do you mean put something on?
Like, it just becomes antagonistic. Like, hey, I was fired, so that doesn't look good. You know what I mean? So before some people will see that coming, they'll just leave and get frustrated. There are 2 individuals that I did work closely with in different agencies that just decided that it was just they'd rather leave than have the ending that I had.
Did you see it coming?
I didn't see it coming. I saw it coming pretty early on. And
at what point? Because you were getting the praises and everything. So
right, I was getting praises.
That's a distraction key
because of the
distraction
work that I was doing was apparent. But I wasn't getting praises behind closed doors. There were other things going on.
Baltimore
bullying
City,
tactics.
This is so typical.
So yeah, it was maybe on camera you would say one thing, but behind closed doors,
it's not just typical. It's typical. Unfortunately, it's a government. This is a characteristic of big government. And again, the bigger the government, the smaller the citizen, right? And that's not my quote. I'm borrowing that quote. But a lot of people, a lot of citizens, we just don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Right. And you're right. The politicians will say one thing in front of the camera, and it's a totally different activity behind the scenes.
So we have to start calling them out. So say their names.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
What names you got for us again?
So Dana P. Moore. She'll have a fit if you don't put the P in the middle.
Oh my
goodness.
And she's petty.
Oh my God, Dana Petty Moore.
Dana Petty Moore. How about that?
Definitely. It's a lot of bully tactics, and you would think a Black woman would be more supportive of another Black woman that's working, but I don't know what happened there. I don't know what's going on.
Tamara, you should have talked to us first before we took that job.
I have a question, because I used to work in the field of audit, right? And I worked with government agencies where I saw that it's very manual. Not everything is electronic as it should be, right? And that's just normal. But are these organizations not audited? Why hasn't any of this information been released to the public? Is there even hope? What can they do?
So if you're familiar with the Board of Estimates, you'll see that every agency, the Comptroller's Office conducts these biannual audits. The problem, even with my office, I'm like, but we set the criteria for what we're going to be audited on. So like the MWBOO office was audited on how many certifications we did. And my theory was, well, does it matter how many certifications we get and how quickly we do them if no one's getting any work and no one's getting paid, people are going out of business because they're certified? It doesn't matter. So I'm like, why aren't our metrics on compliance? How many businesses are growing? How much, is it $1 billion that minority businesses are paid? We need to have those goals where we're meeting that aspirational goal, but our office selected the metrics. So the audits that you will see at some of the Board of Estimates, you'll see every agency will go through these biannual audits. They bring someone in, and then there's fudging by the agency heads. Oh, don't tell them this, and don't submit that. So you may see the audit results at the Board of Estimates every 2 years for agencies, but it's not a thorough as it should be. We do believe that there needs to be an external audit of all of the city agencies.
These are all quasi agencies, right?
Well, they're all agencies. So the Comptroller's Office has the city auditor, and they conduct audits every 2 years.
And not only that, even these audits, there's a time factor. The audit may be done on day one, but the citizens are not notified, if ever, until 2-3 years later.
Right. So the audit is typically done. You guys will they'll have it at the Board of Estimates and the results of it, which are usually, tweaked or
Right.
fixed, within 6 months
Who's
or
in charge of
so.
that though? Like,
The
Controller's
comptroller's office
office.
has an auditor, and under that auditor, I forget the gentleman's name that runs the office now.
Shay.
And if you don't know,
Is it
the
Shay?
previous auditor, Audrey Askew, left, and
I
her
know.
comment
Where's
was
the
that her
mayor
integrity
in
needed to
this?
stay in check, and she left the city because
Yeah,
of her
where-
integrity issues. She did
How
not want
closely is this to the mayor? Like,
Yeah.
he has no eyes on it, or the office of the mayor has no
to.
eyes
So the office of the mayor runs the agencies. We have a city administrator now who's running the agencies, but that doesn't remove the mayor from his
Right.
responsibilities of the agencies in my mind. So, I mean, all the agency heads are selected by the mayor, and so they
Yeah,
should
and
know.
now
I
that
mean, we would hope you have a mayor that understands the inner workings of all the agencies.
Right, but now that we do
typically we
have
don't.
the city, now that we do have the city
The administrator.
administrator, have you noticed any change, or is he implementing?
No, I mean, well, if you call City Hall, and I get a lot of complaints from people that they can't even get anyone on the phone.
No,
And
you
so I
can't.
do remember there was a letter that went out by the city administrator that there's certain protocol, returning calls. Is it happening? No.
No.
And it's a cult. It really, I mean, I really believe that a culture change has to happen before anything else. You know,
I'm sorry, before we do have to take some comments. So please, if you want to take a comment, this is.
Why aren't
Go
black
ahead,
contractors?
Xandria.
Can you see it?
Yeah, Layla Mitchell. Why aren't black contractors in Baltimore getting their fair share? Why are white businesses outside of the city profiting more from Baltimore City contracts than people that live and work there?
well, our businesses are failing in the city. We all know that, right? That's our unemployment is pretty in par with like some of the more Somerset County, like some of the more, you wouldn't think this is a major city based on our unemployment, but then our neighboring counties like Howard County may have a 2%. So our businesses are failing. We're about 5-6% unemployment typically, and like maybe a Howard County will be at 2.5%. So if our businesses are failing, they're not contributing to campaigns, right? You don't have money to do that, so you're not getting any favoritism. You're not in bed with these agencies. You don't have jobs to offer people when they leave these agencies. We see it's.
And you know what? When you think about it, if you think about the last, I would say all of the mayors that have gone out of office, either legally or illegally, none of them go back to any type of city government, any type of government. They go generally to these private industry agencies.
Yeah.
And so maybe that has some connection with, they're probably doing business with these agencies.
Yeah, there's politics in politics.
Yeah.
And there's also a level of, different people funding certain
There's politics in
monopoly
politics.
companies, funding campaigns or
I mean,
they
you
get promised contracts.
You said only 27%. Your office only insured at 27% minority businesses and 10% women, right?
That is the
That's only
overarching
37%.
goal. What's that?
That's only 37%. So that means that other companies, no matter who is the owner, white, black, yellow, can have those
Yeah,
things.
I mean, and it's just subcontracting goals.
That's
It's
just
not prime.
not the
you
prime.
don't get any points for being a minority business when you're bidding as a prime. It's just you get the sub work, and which I don't really agree with. I think there's been enough discrimination.
And you had a protest. You led a protest in March of this year,
Yeah.
right, near the city hall. Who was with you? Like, who participated in the protest, and what was the outcome of that?
So it came to my attention that we had a woman-owned in Baltimore City business that hadn't been paid by a out-of-state contractor for almost a year, about $200,000. And I don't know about you, but for any small business, that's pretty big. You've done the work, and you got to pay your employees, and you got to pay the bills. And so, it was just bubbling up. And so and then I saw an article in the Baltimore Business Journal. It was just like some mud the city was talking about the compliance in the MB office after an audit. So I'm like, no. So we had a protest. A lot of people wanted to be there, but minority businesses are like, oh, if I show my face, they're not going to use me anymore, and I'm going to get,
Flagged or something.
Yeah, they're not going to. So it was very disturbing to me to see business owners afraid to speak out about not being paid and utilized, being used to get awarded contracts, their businesses going out of business. It's like they were going against the mafia. And that is scary, that people are afraid to speak their mind. And I do feel like I was an example. And again, back to your question about me being angry, but if you roll back some tape, I spoke like this when I was in the city,
Mhm.
and I spoke like it when I'm out of the city. It's the same. I've never changed.
Right.
And you can look at hearings that we've had. I've always been very open about what's been going on.
Right.
City council, people will tell you I was the, if you wanted the truth, you went to Tamara Brown. And that's just who I was, because a lot of times the administration would say, don't tell city council this and that. And it's like, wait a minute, my paycheck says the mayor and city council. And I understand. I mean, there's just, I don't get that whole loyalty. Everybody just needs to do the right thing.
So
And I think I was looked at as
It's not
someone that just
loyalty.
wasn't loyal to
It's
the
not- it's not loyalty,
administration.
it's selfishness.
I was more loyal to the people. And if everybody operated like that, we'd have less corruption, we have less fraud, and we'd have less issues.
Wow.
So you would say that the city government is the mafia?
In a way.
I mean, if people are afraid to speak out, I mean, so when we had the protests, we're sitting in front of City Hall. We were way at the other end of the lawn because it was during COVID. And like people were standing on the sidewalk, they were afraid to just even come to the center. That's intimidation. There's a reason people are intimidated. People would joke with me like, oh, because I would leave work so late, like, oh, you're going to get, someone's going to be looking for you. And I really got a little afraid. And like, maybe I should, not leave so late. Or my husband would have to come and get me.
Oh, you mean?
I worked so late. I mean, it was a joke, but it really, sometimes
Started getting
I
it,
would
yeah.
be a little like looking around when I
And
left.
someone from the agency would be looking for
Who knows? I mean, I don't know.
It wouldn't be the first
You have
time.
that paranoia, and that's not normal. You don't leave
Unfortunately.
work worried about stuff like that. But it did start like, man, I am messing with people's money. Like people would say that to me, like, you're
No,
messing
the
with
city
people's
government
money.
is messing with people's money.
Well,
Or
let's go back to that. What do you mean
No,
you're
I'm
messing
saying,
with
but
people?
still.
when you penalize people and take money from them, you're messing with their money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that if you look at the code, that office is an enforcement office. And you can't enforce. You just can't. The government, your leadership won't let you do it, and the contractors don't want you to do it. So I had a list of people, but the process to enforce it takes so long. You got to give them a letter, you got to give them notice, you got to go to the agency. You have to have meetings with the subcontractors. It takes a while. If I could have knocked a lot of them out quicker, you'd have issues. But then when the chief of staff says things to you, for the mayor says things like, oh, we're not going to have any contractors left if you want to do all this.
Kind of the point.
But the point is, well, maybe we won't have any contractors left. We'll have to use our local businesses. But they need to comply with the law.
You were upsetting the apple cart, as the old people would say. You're upsetting the apple cart.
Yeah, when you're told to stop putting so much in email. I was very infamous for that. And it annoyed them because it would be like, oh, per our conversation in the hallway, oh, you said this, you said that. And when you get a call from the mayor's office saying you need to stop putting so much in email,
It leaves a
like,
trail.
Right.
So all this was going on, you getting the call, but you said you didn't really expect it until it happened.
I did expect it. No, I was expecting it. I mean, I knew. So, I was always very cautious. Again, coming from the background that I come from, you don't send, like, I got an email from a vendor that I helped get paid, a minority business that hadn't been paid in a while by the prime. And she was like, oh, I'll make you a bracelet. And I'm like, nah, I can't take a bracelet. Just send a letter to the mayor.
Well, you should have told Marilyn Mosby that.
No.
About
It
those.
was like a knit bracelet, but I'm like, nah. What I would tell people is, reward me with sending them a letter to say you appreciate my assistance. That's what my norm. And you just don't do things like that, So I know they were looking at my email from the previous year, and I wasn't afraid of them catching anything. I mean, it's just something you don't do.
Right.
Yeah,
And so
I knew it was coming, so I started printing and backing up data because I knew it was coming. I mean, I wasn't gonna survive.
So we are at the end of our time on this segment. I want to end it with just what can we do? What can we do to stop this corruption, and what pushback do you expect people to get?
I think that we have to be smarter. I want to start like a voter registration drive because I just feel like voting is key. We have to stop voting for people we feel I know we went to the high school, or they're my friend, or I think they're a good person, or I like them. We have to really, I think the city has to really take some chances and make some major changes in who they're voting for, because everyone's connected. Everyone's in bed together. Everyone, like literally I started drawing a diagram in my living room to say, okay, this person knows this person, and connecting dots because I didn't know who to talk to. And it was like a Law and Order episode. episode. Like, really,
Yeah, I was just
like,
gonna
no,
say that.
I need to know who this is. I'm like, oh damn, you know, they went okay.
I was like,
All the
wire.
it was like a bunch of lines. So I'm like, oh, I can't talk to anybody.
Like you see those.
So the
those
thing we
boards
can
in the
do
police
is, I mean, we're just gonna have to step out of our comfort zone, and people have to be educated. People have to watch the board of estimates, look at the agenda, look at the contracts being awarded. You know, go into City Buy, CITIBUY, pull a list of all the contracts. Like, look at the trends. There's a lot of money going out of the city. Look at where these businesses are operating from. You know,
What do you think about the politicians on the other side, like on the more conservative side? Do you think that if we were to give them a chance in Baltimore City, that things would change, or how do you feel about
I mean, I don't know. Look, I'm a Democrat. I'm very liberal. I mean, but here, my like with the governor's race, I've been open to say that I'm concerned if a Democrat wins the governor's race. I like the oversight of the city having, you know, there has to be some kind of oversight, because I just feel like it's going to be the Wild Wild West. It's like lawlessness.
Well,
if we get certain people,
That's what we got right now.
right. But there's a little bit of stop. You know, there's a little bit of checking. There has to be checks and balances, and I just feel like everyone somehow in Baltimore and in this area are so connected that they just let their friends do anything. So me, my friends, if they're watching, they know I'm like, you can't do that. No. If my mom was working for the city, be like, Mom, I think you're going to jail. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You should have done it. So there has to be checks and balances. So I don't know who the right candidate would be, but we have to step out of our comfort zone, and we have to stop these trendy connected cliques have to be disbanded. We have to disrupt the system in order to make changes. It has to be a huge disruption. And I've come to, you know, you all have come to me, we've spoken, and it's going to take, I think, a unity on both sides of the aisle. It can't be a Democrat.
Just people that
it has to be people that just give a shit.
Right.
My language, sorry.
Right.
All right. Well, we will continue to follow this story. Again, please join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. Also, subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Check out our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com for up-to-date information. Again, we are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right, so we are moving right along. We're going to spend the last 15 minutes. We're going to do something a little different this week. You guys know we always have our pop-off round. So where I ask each host a question that they don't know what the question is going to be, and they just pop off for 30 seconds. But tonight, since we doing it a little differently, we are going to, again, we'll have pop-off round. I'll ask a question and anyone can comment or respond. Right.
I bet Xandria would love that.
All right. So we are going to start with this. I want to play this clip for you guys, and then I would like to get the co-host's response to this. All right,
there's a group of Black women that would have a problem with what I have to say. But this is why right now, I don't care. I am like Miss Seeley when Harpo came to talk to her to say, I can't get Sophia to listen. Sophia won't listen to anything I say. And Miss Seeley said, beat her. I'm not saying literally, but I am saying that Black men need to start standing up and correcting the Black woman, because if not, we are doomed. So I want every Black woman and any woman of any color now to march your ass through the cornfields, pushing the stalks to the left and to the right, and come and step to me and say, you told Harpo to beat me, so I can say yes, because it's time out for us not having correction. It is time out for y'all causing all Black women to look like immoral, materialistic assholes.
All right,
honey, these shoes don't go on cornfields.
So I want to give a little preface, because I wanted you guys to hear the one point before that, but she was asking, are Black women above criticism right now, and is this to our detriment? And so the part you saw on there, she was talking about how Black men are not also, she believes, stepping up and criticizing Black women. Right. So what are your guys' thoughts?
You said
Is it who's this
guest
for?
host.
Anybody.
Anybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Oh, okay.
So you're saying, like
Based
do,
off
do black women feel that they're above criticism? Like they
Are
should be-
black women,
Yeah.
are black women above criticism right now?
Yeah.
And is this to our detriment?
Right.
Why don't you start?
I think so. I agree with Shamika Michelle. I've met her. I think she's funny. She, but she makes some very salient points here. And I think in this climate today, particularly after George Floyd, Freddie Gray, I think black women, we are enjoying, if you will. We talked about that pendulum a couple weeks ago. We're enjoying this pendulum swing where black people have this idea that we're in charge now, and we're certainly going to trample and get white people in place, and they have no place to correct us, even amongst ourselves.
That's
You know,
what's going on.
yeah, I think so. I think we are. I think we do have a sense of that we are above criticism.
I don't think that we are entitled, but we're not entitled based off of what white people think.
Okay.
We're entitled within our own selves, within our own culture,
Mhm.
entitled for things that maybe we feel like we should have or don't have, reparations, that type of thing. But criticism, black women, I don't like the way she brought black men into it. If the question was about black women, why does she have to bring black men standing up and criticizing? Like, that have anything to do with it?
I think that all women should be criticized. I mean, it's not just for black women. All people should not be outside of any criticism. So if there's an issue with the behavior of somebody, somebody needs to bring it up to them.
And her point,
that's what I'm saying.
her point is that other cultures do that. Black women, we don't, which is why the comment she made about being, I don't know, something about being ass out, whatever she said. Black women, we don't. We are the ones in large scale. We're the ones who have babies with no fathers. We're the ones where our children are out committing a lot of crimes, at least in the city, where they go unchecked. So other cultures do. Other cultures seem to have this idea that there is a place for their men, their husbands, to. Okay, go ahead.
We're talking about other cultures. Black women in America get up every day and go to work.
Okay.
I have a Juris Doctorate. I went to school.
And
you may be talking about India and other places.
Okay.
Where
no, we're talking about here in America.
But you're saying other cultures.
Yeah, black women compared to other cultures in the States.
Every day.
Yeah.
And we go to
and
work.
what does that mean?
And so,
while we get up every day, our children are suffering. I'm not saying that black women can't work or shouldn't work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that our goals and our priorities have been misaligned and miselected. You won, Tamara. You are one, and we applaud you for that. You are one person. But when we look at black women across in a large scale, yes, we can. Oh, yes, we can. Because how do we learn? How do we learn from patterns and trends if we don't look at? Oh, yes, we can. You are a lawyer, and you didn't look at trends in your program in school. Come on, you look at trends. Oh, yes, you do look at large data. Yes, you do.
70% of black women being single mothers.
Yes,
in America,
and that's their fault.
Where 25% of white women are.
And our culture applauds it, celebrates it now.
Whose fault is it?
It's black women's fault because they should choose better people meant to lay down with, to be accountable for their own selves and their own decisions. And then if after that, if the man wants to be in there, they can be single but still have a father in their lives. Black women, I don't know, but I'm a black woman, so I talk to black women. We want to give, a lot of them want to give this baby mama drama and don't want the man in their life because, or hate on the man because he didn't choose them. And they go and create all this trouble.
Wow.
So,
but it's 70%.
Wait a minute. Don't y'all watch Dateline? Don't you see all those white women getting murdered by murdering their husbands?
And black women, but we do it too. But we do it too. So,
I'm just saying, it's
go
like,
ahead.
Well, they should be criticized too for their
listen, I'm going to tell you something. I chose not to marry the son, my son's father.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. And I was a single mother for a while. And so your party, you're either for abortion, you're not for abortion, but you want people to get pregnant, then they don't have the baby. What is this? So we have a baby.
Oh God.
No, we don't want to be
yes. We want a two-parent household.
Don't get pregnant without a father.
Without a husband.
And then if you do,
well,
then you deal with it. Yes.
I'm not dealing with it.
No, but wait a minute, but we are dealing with it, but the consequences are not good. What we are dealing with, we're not. We have.
I don't know many single women that are doing very good. They choose their independence and they don't want.
But our
to
children.
But let me end it on
and
this.
our daughters
So,
are engaged and
Because
involved,
we do have
and
to
that's
move
just
on.
that's okay.
We do have to move. We do have to move on. But yes, you know, we've talked about this many times. You know, and I've said the same thing you have said. You know, I have friends that don't fit this. I'm not even calling it stereotype. I'm not going to call it stereotype because it is something. When you look at the data, it is something that is happening in our community. We can't deny it. We may not be around these people,
Right.
you know. But it is happening, and so that's what we have to do. We have to look at the data and figure out, well, what's going on? Why is this happening? And then hold those accountable.
Well,
But we do have to move on.
Sure, a single mother might be very caring and she's raising her kids as best as she can, but then the children are still being hurt. No matter what.
But are there 2-parent white households where the kids are like going and shoot
Absolutely.
Every scenario is different, but we're just so hard on Black women. I mean, really.
A huge percentage.
Yeah.
So you don't agree with Shamika?
I mean, well, yeah.
All right, so we will. Oh, we do have a comment here. So
All
what's
right.
that say?
Sour Wasabi is the name they're going by here.
Okay.
Look at that profile
Their
picture.
photo. All right. See, they are letting their true
Oh,
white
my
supremacist
God.
Republican colors show.
Oh my God.
See, we can't even talk
All
to you
those
because
comments, they put that
you
out.
don't want to show your face. So
No,
you're
I mean,
nobody,
We
whoever
don't
you
have
are.
to be combative in these environments. I mean,
That's just ignorant.
everybody
It's a
has
conversation.
different opinions, and
Yeah,
every
that's
shoe.
okay.
We all can't wear the same shoe.
I interpreted the question differently, just as should Black women, you know, welcome criticism, and I think
Okay.
all people and
Right.
all women should welcome criticism.
But let me ask you a question. You said,
That's
oh,
the way
I'm
I
sorry.
interpreted it.
You said all people.
Yeah.
Why can't you just specifically say Black people, Black women?
Well, are you
Just we're
like
talking about
was
Black
the
women,
question
right?
saying like should they accept criticism from other cultures, right? Or was it? I don't know if it was like.
No, I
specific
said, are
to
Black
African
women
American
above?
cultures?
I said, are Black women above criticism right now? And is this to our detriment?
I mean, I think there are people.
She won't be able to answer that
I don't
question.
think as a whole, but I think there are people that
She
are
won't be able to
against
answer that.
that will get really in your face if you
think
give
so.
them criticism. And I don't
Oh,
think
we have
that's
another
good.
comment. Another
All
comment.
right, we have one more
Oh,
comment,
sorry,
then this will
sorry.
be it.
All right, Christopher Anderson. The data says it's not the man. Everyone is saying Black women are out of control.
Oh, well, I guess I'll be out of control then.
Okay.
All right, we're moving on. So next question. The NFL has uncovered yet more emails involving Raiders coach Joe Gruden. I'm not sure if you guys, Gruden, you've been following this from 2010 to 2018, in which he used sexist, homophobic, and transphobic language, according to a report from the New York Times. So I want to ask you guys, are the statements that John Gruden's made in his emails, he resigned, but do you believe he should have, are these grounds for termination? So just in case you're unsure, I mean, some of the stuff he said, the biggest thing that's been pretty much in headlines is the email he sent about DeMarcus Smith. He calls this man, do we have a photo of him?
I don't think he was fired until he made.
This is
other
DeMar
comments,
Smith. So Gruden says he calls him Dummore Smith, has lips the size of Michelin tires.
I haven't heard C-coolers in a while.
Well, if I can get fired for doing my job, then he can get fired for making those statements.
What about freedom of
in
speech?
Baltimore City.
I didn't have freedom of speech.
I mean,
But that was seen as a racist comment
right.
for him making fun of this man's lip.
Right, I was gonna say I don't know the story. I mean, I don't know I don't know the story, so I don't know that the comments were actually tied to race. I mean, he could.
It was.
Right?
It said the one I just said. The more
He said he admitted that they were too. I think
Oh,
that
did he admit that they were?
after he resigned, I think he said something that they were not
Well,
basically.
Of course he had.
I mean,
you can't be in the NFL. I mean, there's too many Black players. It's just unacceptable.
So Black people
When you are
have
in certain
so
leadership
because there are a lot of Black players or wherever there are a lot of Black people, other people have to walk on eggshells.
No, when you are in a leadership position
Mhm.
and you're getting paid certain salaries like we want for
Okay.
others and everyone, you have a certain decorum and a certain responsibility
Okay.
to act accordingly.
Now-
And that's just unacceptable in the workplace, period.
Speaking of NFL, how about those Ravens?
I mean, he should just not be calling like a player, right? If he's a boss, he shouldn't be. If
well,
it's
he
something
didn't
that
call. He was
insults
sending
somebody-
emails amongst his peers or amongst
Right,
people,
right.
and he made. He said some other stuff.
So who reported on him?
That's what I want to know. How
were-
they even
they
came
were-
about
There's investigation into the
Oh, he didn't even say it.
Washington.
Right.
Why did they?
Redskins.
This was
It's
nothing
the
to do with him.
Washington,
He was not being investigated
whatever they call
originally.
it,
Look, if-
And they came across
Yeah.
these emails
any-
in another during another
If any
investigation.
manager was
But
having
it's irrelevant.
conversations with other people about somebody in a derogatory or whatever, maybe in their mind it's not, but in a way that insults somebody, right? Or it's just like,
It's
if you're making
unprofessional,
fun of somebody's like
period.
appearance, then,
If it was a
I
black
agree, it's
woman making that
inappropriate.
statement, she'd be, oh, she's crazy and unprofessional. He's unprofessional. He can't.
No,
He
I
doesn't
think
control
it's
his emotions on the
It's a
job.
white
And he's
man that made
unprofessional.
those.
I think it's
those
He's a
statements,
yes,
right?
he is
It's
a white
extremely
man.
What if it was a
unprofessional.
black person? I'm just wondering because the same kind of words can be said by people of the same race.
Yeah,
Well,
we're not
but-
bold enough to do stuff like that, though.
Oh,
Well,
I'm just saying.
Even more so. I think
Not at work now.
it
I've
comes from
seen
black
that
people
happen.
even more so.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
At
I have.
She's
I've,
saying at work.
yeah, I've
But even it was a personal conversation, right?
Right,
So
right.
would be this.
But apparently he used a
He
professional
shouldn't use-
work
right, he
emails or whatever. I'm
shouldn't use a
guessing.
work email.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
shouldn't know where he's a work.
Exactly.
Email.
It's
He shouldn't
unprofessional.
work-
Period.
He shouldn't work.
Look,
Use
if
the
it
work
was-
email.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We're moving right along.
Another comment?
Oh, we do have a comment. Go ahead.
All right, Layla Mitchell. It's definitely racist. Where did they get her from? OMG. Does she not like herself, the lady? Oh, me? I don't understand.
The lady in the
No.
arms.
No,
I was
not
saying-
you.
Wait, what? She's like, I don't understand what I said.
That's about you.
I didn't even say anything about these comments.
I think the thing that matters is like if it actually like if he admits it was tied to a racial comment, right? Because I know white guys that have people would say, oh, they have big lips too. You know what I mean?
Mitchell and
So
Tyre.
it's
Black
like-
people would say the
Where
same
he
thing
at?
about each other.
Right,
I mean,
Right.
because
Black
So,
women
I'm
say
just
about
saying-
each other's
Right.
body parts all the
The
time.
bottom
can
line
say
is it's a professional workplace
why can't
email. You shouldn't write anything unprofessional that can bite you in the butt on a professional email, period.
Right.
Right, that's true.
That's it.
That's true. Now, let's say this. If this wasn't a professional email, I mean, do you guys take just this comment just from face value as racist?
No,
I mean,
Because
none of my
of-
white friends are going to talk to me like that. That's all I got.
Oh,
I don't because
what
I mean,
was
if you're
her
talking
name
about, we talk
He
about,
said he called-
we talk
he
to each
called
other
that
like
man
that a
that we
lot.
showed the-
Women talk to each other like that a lot. Guys rib each other in a different way.
Right,
Women
right.
talk to each other about their body parts a lot of times. We don't necessarily put it in writing in a professional manner, but
I mean,
we do.
it's not appropriate. It's talking about someone else's appearance.
Yeah.
Whether it's racist or not, that is a question. I mean, can we not talk about each other's appearance? Like, should I always think about that? What race the person is? I mean, I can criticize or not. I mean, it's not nice to talk about to say like someone is ugly. Let's say,
Right.
But it's not necessarily racist.
But
It's
that
not
man's
always
wife
racist.
probably went and got her lips injected to look like his. So I'm confused.
Could
I'm
be.
just
It could
confused.
be.
I'm confused.
Look,
Anyway.
if you're asking about a personal email or if it wasn't a personal message, I mean, I would.
Yes, they all do.
I don't know if they could or
You heard
should
me,
be
Tamara?
fired
Yes,
based
they
off
all
that,
do.
right? But in general, it would be like saying like you messaging your buddy, oh, that ugly person, or oh, whoever they are, right? Like, should you be messaging someone your negative opinion about somebody else
People
or like
do.
an
I
insult?
do it all the
Yeah,
time.
so that's what I'm saying.
I mean, come on.
Not
Come
in
on now.
professional,
Come on, let me
not in your
talk.
professional
Let me think.
email.
All right, I don't know if you got it.
So
I'm on the
saying-
couch with a bunch of
I was
angels.
saying at work.
No,
But
no.
I'm on Zoom at work, okay, and someone is speaking. I will text some of my coworkers and say, "Look at this guy with these Michelin
Right, but you do that
tire
on your
lips."
phone. You do that on your phone. You do that on your own phone. But
Right,
that's
I
what
wouldn't do it on email.
Right,
That's why
exactly,
I'm saying
exactly.
If it's on the personal thing, I don't know that it's a fireable offense, but it's just
Oh,
not
right.
nice.
But I mean,
It's just not nice.
Oh,
maybe
please.
I'm the.
Women talk about each other like you said, KJ.
I mean, I used to
Please.
be in
Not denying
church.
people do it.
We would be in church.
Texting
And
each
my
other.
girlfriend sitting on the front pew, and we say, "Look at Pastor's Jerry curl. He got it dripping all over the." Come on now.
Right.
I mean,
you're
this-
right.
Are we in such?
No.
Are we in a climate right now where it's
Everybody's
so
sensitive.
sensitive? You can't.
Yes,
say
we are in that
anything.
climate. We are in that
Yes,
climate.
we
Everybody
are.
I
needs
mean,
to
I'm
say
not
Sit
saying
space.
this
here
is
and
right.
say whatever I want to say. Nobody's gonna get mad.
Of course.
Ah,
This is
yeah,
a-
right.
So that if you say what?
Get mad.
No, it's okay.
We get mad at each other.
Right, we get mad.
I mean,
We get mad with each other.
That's
We had somebody
We
walk
gotta
off.
get back to humanity.
That's when we got wine.
somebody
After we have an after show.
Who told any of us that by the time we leave this life, we're not supposed to be upset about anything? Where do we get that idea from? That we all need a bubble, a big bubble wrap around us, and we can't What? So what?
Being respectful though.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
don't
I
do
am,
that.
I'm a native
Sometimes we're not.
Baltimorean.
I'm a
okay?
Native American.
I'm a native Baltimorean. I've been on the playground at city schools and we crack on each other. That's what we
Exactly.
used to call it. You know, me and my
Exactly.
sisters, I grew up in a house full of women. I
That's
still
what-
call them, hey, ugly, what you doing? This is just me. I don't know, but maybe I'm just, I don't know.
I think their situation's different because it's a
Right.
professional
That's
environment.
wrong.
Right, that's the
wrong.
difference.
It's definitely
That's
not
wrong.
appropriate what he did.
Right. Right. I mean,
don't know
he
if it's
said some
fire,
stuff
but-
about, he said something about the guy who came out, the football player who came out, he called him
What
the
is
Q
that?
word.
Again,
Sour wasabi. The black women are making a lot of self-deprecating comments. Sad.
Oh,
He's
well,
criticizing black women.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
Open criticism.
I don't care. I mean,
Right.
I don't take myself, my appearance or anything like that. You know, I'm not so snowflake. I'm not so like a porcelain doll.
Look,
where
one
you
of my
can't
friends, one of my
say
best
something.
buddies calls me Big Head all the time.
Yeah.
When I was in elementary school, one of the guys, one of my elementary school classmates gave three of us. We was three of us used to hang together, 3 girls. He called us nose, head, and lips. I had the nose, but another my girlfriend, she had the head.
But y'all were
No, I'm saying,
we're talking about adults.
But my point is that well, I'm a grown woman now. We still think about it and laugh about it. It's my point. We still laugh about it as a grown women. We're all grown women, and we laugh about it.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm glad that he's an engaging listener.
yeah, that is.
Thank you for your view.
Right.
He or she.
Right. Yeah. He or
Or
she.
she.
So,
Or
so
them.
It sounds more
stated
male driven.
essentially what we said.
For some
He,
reason.
For some
he made
reason.
inappropriate comments in working males. Yes, it's inappropriate. That's not what he's getting paid
We
for.
said that. We
with
agreed
it.
that.
We all
Yeah,
agree
we
with
agree.
it.
Yeah, we agree with that. All right. So moving right along to the last one.
Oh Lord.
So this is Baltimore. So this is a Baltimore question. So Roya Hanna, if you guys are familiar, she worked as an assistant state's attorney in Baltimore for 12 years. She's trying cases involving homicides, drugs, and juvenile crimes, and is now running against Marilyn Mosby in 2022. The city has seen its homicide rate surpass 300 for the past 6 years in a row. Hanna says her what's her name? Johanna, her last name, says her plan to get that number down will include reversing some of Marilyn Mosby's current policies, which she believes have led to fewer arrests, fewer convictions, and less accountability for those driving the city's violence. Do you agree with this notion? Why or why not? Do you agree that the policies that Marilyn Mosby is implementing are driving the city's violence?
Absolutely, and in some ways, particularly if you're not arresting people. And I know that Marilyn Mosby herself has said many times that basically she's trying to correct historical wrongs, and she wants to reduce the contact, the police contact, particularly of Black people in Baltimore City. So by theory, by logic, if you reduce police contact and not arresting people, then arrests are going to be lower.
Your face. It's so cold in the camera. You gotta tell us what you're thinking about.
But
this,
yeah,
because
please.
You had all kind of units.
I mean, the things that the things that she's reducing are not typically going to reduce. I mean, it's not going to drive up crime if you don't arrest people.
Which, like what, you talking about the quality of life crimes?
Those are
So-called
violent crimes. I mean, if you look statistically, arrests don't typically reduce crime. I mean, and there are. I did look at that group population.
Okay.
And so that's not what does it. We have to focus on things like opportunities and other things. But I do believe when it comes down to it, no matter what Marilyn Mosby or whomever is in office does, when you go to court and the judges are easy on violent crimes, it has nothing to do with it. I mean, if they charge somebody with having, I don't know, some drugs on them, that's not going to stop crime, you know? But when someone is murdered and they're kind of, it's like a revolving door, right? That's the real issue. So I'm not for or against what she's doing. I can understand it, but it's not going to change it. There's more than one solution. Hannah Roy is not going to come and reverse that and crime's going to stop. Because before she did those things, crime was still high.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, that's one thing.
So the problem also
that's
is
incorrect what you said, because across the country, when arrests have gone up, when police are there, crime goes down. That's a statistic. It's across the country. When arrests go up,
when
you put the police, crime goes down.
When you have a situation where the police literally needs to call their supervisor in order to make an arrest.
But that's the consent decree. That's not Marilyn Mosby. That is part of the consent decree.
We're not saying that she's the only one. We're not saying that Marilyn Mosby is the cause, or some of her policies do contribute, and they contribute to the climate that's
job. Okay.
Well, they can't do their job if they know that they're going to be prosecuted
Oh, well,
themselves.
they need to do it right.
Like, what would they not do? What would they not do right?
Getting paid.
Yeah, they are. We want them to do
You
right.
can't harm and kill people when you're arresting them. Just arrest them. I mean, it's just again.
Wait a minute. Well, that's gonna be a whole different topic. I'm sorry.
You know, she said you
something.
can't harm. Are
If you're-
police harming people? Do we have data that show
That's what I
on a
was gonna say.
massive scale
Yes.
that police are out here harming people?
I'm not going to say yes or no, but what I'm going to tell you.
Well,
what
how can you
started the
make that
consent
statement?
decree, I'm talking about because there was a consent decree. The federal government did just come in and say, "Hey, Baltimore, everything's great with your police department,
Right.
and we're going to put you under."
So
consent
what
decree."
we're saying is
Something
that
was
these
wrong,
policies,
right? That's the data.
we're saying that these policies do have an effect on the crime and the climate of crime in Baltimore City.
Police are getting paid a salary, and they need to do their job.
And we say Marilyn Mose needs to do hers too. She needs to advocate. Yes, she
and
does.
How about the fact that they removed a big percentage of the police?
They
force
left. Yeah, they're gone.
No, they were literally laid off in Baltimore.
I don't know why they've got the biggest budget in the city.
Well, but
That's
that's.
I mean,
I
I
have
can't-
spoken.
They have the
It was like.
Oh wait, Baltimore City Police Department has the biggest budget.
The largest, I mean, their budget is
As far as the
huge.
city
As far
government,
as the city
yeah.
government,
Oh,
it's a tremendous government.
But what do you think that should worse be? Since we got
I
crime going up,
Yeah.
I'm not saying
crime is off the hook in the
She
city.
was saying that they
If
were laid-
anybody need to be
Hold on.
paid, it's the police
Hold on, I
department.
was responding to her comment of her saying
Right.
that people were laid off, and it certainly wasn't for budgetary reasons because they have a large budget. We need to actually look at what they're spending money on, and maybe
Right,
that needs to be
that's true.
shifted. I do believe in policing. Surprisingly,
Mhm.
yes, I'm liberal. I'm a Democrat. I
Most
believe in
people don't.
policing.
I mean, most people
I do believe in policing. I believe in correct policing,
Right.
and I
So
believe
do
in
we.
community policing.
So do
And there's a way to do it.
And we
So
also believe
everyone
in
that's
when we
getting
keep
a
violent
paycheck,
criminals behind
everyone that's
bars.
getting a paycheck on the tax dollars that I have to pay on my properties and the tickets that I have to pay, they're going to do their jobs the right way. And we have to have that expectation of everybody, including our police.
Right.
I do believe in policing, but I believe in it being correct policing.
Okay.
And one
Of course.
policy is not going to make or break the city crime. We also have to talk about the opportunities and the lack of opportunities
Yeah.
and job and healthcare opportunities
Yeah.
actually decrease crime.
Right.
Right.
They
And-
do.
and
Yeah, they do.
education.
Yeah, education.
Education, right?
Absolutely.
Education, which the city is doing poorly on.
What is
again,
right in the city?
Well,
Trash isn't right.
Well, where's the
Education
money
isn't
going
right.
then? I mean, if that's the case.
Right.
Right.
So-
That's true. So, well, we will continue to follow that. Again, that is our pop-off round. So we just ask a question and the co-host pop off on the question. So we will move now to our, we are at the end actually.
That's an hour already?
All right, we are at the end of our show. I do want to highlight just quickly our Declare a Crisis Baltimore campaign. This is something that we do every show, every week. We declare a crisis and highlight the crime happening or murders happening to youth in our city because that is at an all-time high. Today, I want to just shout out and spotlight Montrell Graham. He was found on September 6th at 8:40 p.m. He was 17 years old, shot and found dead at the scene. So again, another life lost. We are seeing more women and kids dying by murder in the city. And please declare it a crisis, Baltimore. Hashtag that, declare it a crisis, Baltimore. We want to let our city elected officials know that this is something that has to stop. So again, hashtag declare it a crisis, Baltimore, if you are spotlighting or highlighting homicides to youth in our city. All right, so we are at the end of our show. We do want to thank you, Tamara, for coming on. Thank you so much. Hopefully we made a safe space.
she didn't get no bubble. She didn't get no bubble. She's fine.
Yeah. So see, said that to her. She usually her and I are going at it. So again, we are at the end of our show. So we thanks for watching. Continue the conversation by checking us out on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe. That way you get up-to-the-minute content when we post, and we appreciate the support. We are an independent media, and each time you subscribe, it helps make our voice that much stronger. And we are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. Again, check us out on the web at www.metroconservativemedia.com. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, count your blessings and live a life of purpose. Good night. Toodles.